Well, he just won't be here.
Here.
Regent Bailey.
Present.
Regent Bradley.
Here.
Regent Drew. Regent Evers. Regent Falbo. Regent Higgins.
Here.
Regent Rybar.
Here.
Regent Menedee.
Here.
Regent Milner.
Present.
Regent Pointer.
Here.
Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Roberts. Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Tyler.
Here.
Regent Vasquez.
Here.
Regent Walsh. Regent Whitburn.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Jane, and good morning, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to express the board's appreciation to Chancellor Sorensen, which we will be doing often the next couple of days, and your team for a warm welcome. I know it's not always easy when our group comes into town, but there's a lot to see, a lot going on in the next few days. In fact, we're going to start things off today with our host campus. And there's nobody better to start that and tell about the UW-Stout story than its leader, Chuck Sorensen. As you know, Chuck's been at the helm here since 1988, and which makes him something of an institution in his own right. But Chancellor Sorensen.
Well, thank you very much, Regent Smith, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to our campus. I had been here since my 25th year. I finally found a job I liked, and it's worked hard to keep it. But it's been a great experience to work with great colleagues and work in a great state. We do have special guests here today. John Murtha, our local representative. John, stand up. Kathy Grenier is here as well. Kathy, welcome. Thank you so much. We think Sheila Harsdorf will come a little bit later. We have also Troy Nelson, our SSA president. Troy, stand up. And you'll hear from another student rather soon. But indeed, the campus, I think, is prepared for the visit by the Regents. It's clearly, if you came in from the north, you saw a new gateway project that identifies clearly you're on our campus. This came out of a study that we had done a couple of years ago to better define who we are, where we are in the campus between boundary lines between us and Menominee. So we've done a pretty good job of doing that, I think. And today you're in a student center that was opened last January after a renovation project that took about 14 months. And you'll see the power of renovation, because this student center was very dark. It looked like a cave when you walked into it, quite frankly. And the student body voted themselves to a $19 million seg fee to renovate this building, and they've done so in a phenomenal way. And so the moment the door, and they have a great deal to do with how this was designed. And I want to thank the system, David Miller especially. He's been a great aid to us in transforming this campus physically, and it has been transformed physically. But the moment we opened the doors in the student center, the students came, and they flock here every day to study, socialize, to simply be here in a very comfortable space. So it's been very, very, very beneficial to us. So I want to talk today about my 25 or 24 years here and how I think we transformed the campus. I have on the board, you may now shift. I had a striking,
That's an interesting picture.
my flip there was two photos, and one is the present chair of the board, Brent, and the other is James Stout. I saw a striking similarity between the two men. Both are visionary leaders, at least Stout was, our founder, and both served as chair of the board. Mr. Stout served as chair for 2 academic years at a private university, and Brent, of course, now. So I thought, fitting and properly, we should have those photos there and decide who is who. I put names on.
Very good. Glad you made that identification.
But we were founded by a visionary thinker, and the results are today. So I want to talk about how we transform this campus. A few reminders that we are a tobacco-free campus. I think the only one in the UW, maybe one of the two-year colleges. In April 2009, the students supported a banning smoking on campus. We did that. 2010, they supported a tobacco ban. We did that, and this began in September 2010. Now we're probably 98% tobacco-free. We have those that feel they pay tuition, they can smoke on campus. We're polite about it. We tell them they can't, and we enforce through peer pressure. And it's changed the culture of the campus. You don't see cigarette butts on every entranceway to every building, and I think we're probably 98%. We're going to hire monitors this fall to walk around, just remind people, if you're smoking, please, they can smoke in the streets. They aren't ours. So they step into the curb and smoke. We try not to tell them that. I don't want to be blamed for having a few autos crush our students, but for the most part, indeed, they are recognizing the need for a smoke-free campus that's healthy. I'm sorry, we have
the
a video to
University
show
of
you.
Wisconsin-Stout is a
Next 5 or
leader
6
in
minutes.
educational innovation. From our beginning in 1891, the Stout Manual Training School served the needs of the 20th century. Today, UW-Stout is a sophisticated polytechnic university serving the needs of the 21st century. We have turned our historic college into a prestigious university focused on discovery and innovation. Uniquely positioned in the University of Wisconsin system, UW-Stout is the only UW school with a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics college. Our other successful colleges of arts, humanities, and social sciences, education, health, and human sciences, and management help make UW-Stout a well-rounded and focused university. Along with our polytechnic peers, we share the same philosophy: career-focused majors in an applied learning environment leading to successful careers. Discover, inspire, succeed. These words truly describe the educational experience at the University of Wisconsin-Stout. Our students discover their passion through hands-on, inspired learning and successful experiences in their chosen field. 89% of our students are involved with experiential learning opportunities, conducting research and working in professional jobs for companies and organizations, or student teaching around the world, experiencing real-world learning during college. Our graduates not only secure jobs, they secure their future. Our employment rate has been 97% for more than 10 years.
I feel like I'm prepared because we do have to do internships, we do have to do co-ops and make those connections within the industry.
We are leading the way in conducting research, fostering discovery, and advancing innovation. Our commitment to research and ethics has led to the development and expansion of specialized research, medical device and biomedical research, technology transfer, and the creation of an ethics center. The Discovery Center and the Center for Applied Ethics were created through generous endowed donations of $2 million each. The Discovery Center provides collaborative applied learning experiences and engages teams of students, faculty, and staff to work on cutting-edge, real-world projects.
We also have direct ties with industry through our Manufacturing Outreach Center, working with small and medium-sized manufacturers throughout northern and western Wisconsin.
Kenneth Smith, a Discovery Center Research Associate, received the 2012 WISIS Innovation Scholar Award for his cutting-edge work on fuel cell design. DesignWise Medical approached UW-Stout to develop an iPhone application for children receiving ongoing medical treatment in order to assist them in coping with pain and necessary procedures.
We're partnering with a couple of students and a faculty member here at the University of Wisconsin-Stout to bring the content that Children's Hospital of Minnesota has and bring it into the mobile application format.
This type of collaboration between art and computer science allows a synergy to develop and a complete application to be written. So UW-Stout students, when they are engaged in actual customers in the professional community, bring a complete tool set and a complete team to develop applications.
if I could do everything here on a theoretical basis, if I could bring all my projects to UW-Stout, I would.
Through our connections with business and industry and our strong alumni support, the Stout University Foundation has assets of nearly $40 million, one of the largest in the UW system. Additionally, we have received $2 million in NSF grants and more than $300,000 in NIH grants.
We have an NSF STEM and an NSF STEP grant at Stout. Both of them I have strong collaboration teams with. My NSF STEM, I collaborate with Krista James from the biology department, and the NSF STEP grant, I have collaborators at UW-Manitowoc. I like those grants, and they're really excellent for Stout and our Stout students because they really help to build our capacity to serve a more diverse student population. So the focus of both of those grants, and I think they work together very synergistically, very nicely, the focus of both of them is to increase access to underrepresented students and to diverse student populations to STEM careers and to STEM education pathway.
UW-Stout received an NSF grant to study the sinkhole in Lake Huron. The project enables the applied science students in Professor Knoll's biology classes to do high-quality original research in the lab and field.
I think the most interesting thing of this work is the fact that we're doing this research with students in the classroom. So when students sign up for my courses, they do the research that is part of the Sinkholes project. And as a student in my class, they generate the clone libraries, and they generate sequence data, and they do the bioinformatics analysis, and they generate the data that make its way into publications. And we're unique in that way. As a polytechnic university, we're very unique in the fact that we're taking students and giving them such real-life experiences that they end up, being published in our primary literature.
From DNA, environmental, and food safety research to creating packaging and needed industry solutions and commercial products, our students and faculty are discovering and creating solutions that impact the world today, tomorrow, and far into the future. UW-Stout has been a truly digital campus for more than a decade and is a vibrant wireless campus serving over 11,000 students annually on campus and online. We have transformed our physical campus, completing 12 major building projects and hundreds of laboratory and classroom remodeling projects. While much has changed in the last 120 years, our philosophy hasn't. Our career-focused, applied approach to learning has stood the test of time, and our excellent employment rate is a testament to our proven educational philosophy. At UW-Stout, Wisconsin's Polytechnic University, we are inspiring innovation.
I hope that you get a sense of how dynamic we think we are, at least, and what's been happening on UW-Stout's campus. I just found out that Stephen Knoll was on, the biologist in that, did the Lake Huron study with students. He came about 13 years ago, and he brought to this campus the very first NSF grant. And since then, we probably had about 18. So we entered a whole new era by hiring people like Stephen Knoll. When I came in '88, to the left is a photo of a very innocent young chancellor that learned in a heck of a hurry that this wasn't going to be a real smooth journey to where we are today. But when I came in 1988, we were a different school, a good school, a respected school, really known for industrial arts education, home ec ed, and we're just starting to branch out into other areas, business and hospitality management was on our campus. But we were in the infancy of growth. Limited program array, we had only 20 programs when I came in 1988. We had a decentralized planning process that probably before today was efficient, but not nearly as efficient as we are today. We had, in fact, I put down top-down decision-making because the faculty wanted to hear that. No, not really. But what we did the usual planning of department to dean to provost to my cabinet, and it wasn't, there were silos, quite frankly. Many schools haven't yet today. Pretty much an open admission campus. I found it odd when I came here that a student with a high ACT who applied too late couldn't get in, but one of the low ACT who applied right away could get in. So we we had some disarray in how we were admitting students, and we had caps on program enrollments, and that they weren't lifted by the UW system, I think, until, I don't even know anymore, mid-1990s, something like that. So we had that to deal with as well. Our journey really began to where we are today. It began in a serious way after 1997. In 1997, we made some significant changes on campus because of a campus kind of upheaval and crisis. But we made changes that led to where we are today and led to us winning the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. We redesigned our systems of leadership in 1997, so we included everyone. We included the faculty, staff, students, administration in a more of a flat structure, so we can talk to each other virtually on a daily basis. We began a very flat, integrated planning process in 1997 that we'll talk a little bit more about later. And of course, the Baldrige Award, to me, one of the most prestigious awards you can win in the area of quality improvement. And everything we do now is through the prism of the Baldrige. It transformed who we are. And we won the award in 2001, and we're still consulting with those schools on how to do this. And I was down in Arizona only last week presenting on the Baldrige. So that it's something that's been part of our DNA now, and something that people are recognized for internationally, at least in higher ed, and those who embrace this philosophy of higher ed. We began a very aggressive e-scholar program in 2001, our laptop program. Every student leases a laptop. They get 2 during their 4-year career or 5-year career until the baccalaureate. They take the last one with them so that they walk away with something too. And by the way, the e-scholar program meant that we gave up our open access labs. So we don't need them anymore. We're like a walking lab. We have some high-level labs for industrial design. Is that the Mission State Fight song? If that's what it was, all right.
Sounded like on Wisconsin to me.
Oh! I can't see red. Going back. Anyway, the e-scholar program has had an impact on learning, and that's why we did it. And we have evidence of that. At the same time, the residue of that was we gave up open access labs. We have specialized labs, the open access labs open to allow space for us on campus. The Polytechnic designation, we came to you in 2007, after about 4 years of really rancorous debate on campus. Why are you doing this? Why should we call ourselves something different? We're called a special mission school. That I think no one knew exactly what that meant. And as we studied this, and looked at why we should do this, 2 or 3 major reasons. One, we've always been a polytechnic. The characteristics of a polytechnic are applied learning, outreach, wedge theory and practice, and about 8 characteristics. And the former provost, who's now down in Illinois, we spent a lot of time on the telephone, visiting schools, and trying to measure up what this really meant. And we decided we always have been this. Why not call ourselves that? And the other thing is, importantly, to make a difference between ourselves and other schools. I mean, every good business tries to find that niche. I think Mark would tell you that. And so we try to find that niche, and I think we found it. And it's been very good for us. But all planning now goes through the prism of the Polytechnic, and it's very healthy for us. The Discovery Center we established in 2009. That's an umbrella for all of our applied research. And that was alum gave us $2 million to endow to develop this. And he said, I think you have the school on the right track. This is where you should be going. So there's been some also nice impact on the designation among alums. Well, I think in our culture in 2012, I would characterize it like this. Expanded program array. We now have 45 programs at the undergraduate level. We have over 19 at the graduate level. We've expanded that. And they're all programs that fit our definition of the Polytechnic. All programs that emphasize weighting theory and practice. All programs that emphasize reaching out to the broader community, blurring those boundary lines between the campus and the real world. We're very transparent. Our planning process is the most transparent I've ever seen, very participatory, and very data-driven. We look at data all the time. We're data-rich, and this is one reason why when we looked at the Baldrige Award, people said, wow, you're so data-driven, you should look at this because that's what the Baldrige wants. They want proof that you are doing what you said you will do in a process by which you achieve that. We're a vibrant wireless campus, and we're wired so that, and this is to accommodate our laptop program. And we serve more than 11,000 students annually, and our official enrollment is about 9340, but on a 12-month basis, I have to sign each year a financial aid, it's called FISAP for the feds, and we serve 11,210 students this year. So we're really a campus of that number if you believe that you count everyone you serve. And then and now, enrollment in 88 was about 7,600. Actually, I just have a personal story about this because my first board meeting was fall of 1988. And we had distinct targets we had to meet, and maybe Debbie remembers those. And you couldn't buy, they gave you 0.5% either way, otherwise, 0.5%. So I came here from growth school, so you want to grow, be vibrant. And we were 2.5% over our target, which I thought, that's pretty close. Not too bad, 2.5%. 275 students, something like that. I got in my first board meeting, and a regent named Weinstein just skewered me. I mean, he had me stand up. I was a new regent. I was a chancellor. Why can't you control your enrollment? Well, I thought we had, but so I went back and I thought I'd never go through that again. And we drove enrollment down. We got down to about 7,100. So by about 1991, we were 7,100 by reducing our freshman class. A huge mistake. Took a hole. We dug a hole for ourselves. I dug a hole for ourselves that took us years to dig out of. But so we drove it from 75 down to about 71, and then gradually today, 2012, I guess we're 9205, and a good, healthy, vibrant enrollment for us. Faculty and instructional staff in '88 we had 330. Today we have 483. State aid. This is telling. In '88. Over 40%, I think it's more like 43 or 4%, came from the state. Today it's right around 13 or 14% from the state universities. So you see that declining state support, which is, has an impact on all of us. Our campus size hasn't changed very much. We're bound by Menominee. We had 120 acres in '88. We purchased 11 acres since then, so 131. Undergrad majors, 22 in '88, 44 today. Graduate majors, 15 in '88, 19 today. Employment rate stayed about the same, hasn't changed very much at all. In part because we have a vibrant co-op program. And we host, if you're here next week, I'd invite you back. And my staff said, no, they didn't say that actually. They said, let them enjoy it today. But next week we'll have about 300 companies on campus for 3 days. They come in waves to recruit our students for co-ops or for jobs. And it's dynamic around here. This whole building will be full of companies recruiting students. And we have another one in the springtime, a little bit smaller, so that our combination of co-op, our career fair days really has an impact on the placement. And our foundation assets, about 2.3 in 88, right around, I round up all the time, it drives my staff crazy, right around $40 million. And we plan to grow that more in the future. And why have we changed? You talk about good planning process, exemplary leadership, I suppose, with my staff, and all of that. I'll tell you why we're changing. We're hiring good people. I put up there about 8 or 10 photos of the younger people we've hired the last, say, 6 or 8 years, and what they've brought to the table for UW-Stout. Katrina Carlson, in 1 year, she's in biology, 1 year got 2 NSF grants, and she was on the video. 2 in 1 year. She's from Missouri, major Research One school. Seth Dutter, Berkeley, not a bad school. Chris Ferguson, Indiana. Adam is one of our students, went down to PhD in engineering. He came back to teach for us in the area of plastics engineering. Terry Mason, Iowa. We have a few others. Maureen Patterson in physics from Madison, Nels Paulson from Arizona State, Kate Thomas, an historian from Minnesota, Glenn Rodriguez from Georgia Tech, and she just came and joined us in January from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and she came within a month. We had her in the Discovery Center doing work with prototyping orthopedic devices for our Discovery Center. So this is how we change, by hiring excellent people, and that's the future of any school in higher ed, and that's why salaries are so important. That's why it's so important to attract them and keep them. Discovery Center is this umbrella organization that we put in place 3 or 4 years ago the umbrella for all of our applied research. It's the needed structure for economic development, tech transfer, applied research, and outreach. It adds value to business, industry, and obviously to our faculty and students. It has an economic impact on the state and maybe even the vast region of the Midwest, and it advances educational opportunities. The Discovery Center is the home of the Northwest Wisconsin Manufacturing Outreach Center. This program was begun under President Clinton in 1992. We applied for and got one of the first wave of grants in 1994, only 1 or 2 in Wisconsin, and only 1 associated with the university. And they do TAP projects, primarily technical assistance projects. A manufacturing company may have an issue with a plant floor layout or with computer applications. We go in with a team and help them solve that problem. Since 1994, we completed 5,000 what we call TAP projects. We worked with more than 2,500 companies. We have project managers that we hire to do this, and they often use teams of students. And the impact reported by clients to a third party, neutral third party, has been over $500 million. So that's one form of tech transfer that's, I think, is really important to understand when we talk about that kind of impact we have on the state and region. In 2010-11, I think that's the last year that we had data for the Outreach Center, the client reported results were total cost savings of $4.3 million, and these are primarily Northwest Wisconsin companies. Total sales increase, $18.9 million. The total investment leverage, 6.1. Jobs created, 130 new jobs, and jobs retained, 189. So this has an impact, a profound impact on the region, and it is a different form of tech transfer, but a very, very important one. Discovery Center is moving in a different direction now. We'll always retain that, but we're moving in the direction of taking an idea to product to perhaps company. And we have organized in our Discovery Center a medical device initiative, because the big medical device center is in Minneapolis-St. Paul. They have a massive number of medical device companies over there. We hired our first research scientists to work with clinicians, faculty, staff, and students to develop medical devices. And this person does not teach. His sole purpose is research on devices. We collaborate with other research institutions, Gunderson Clinic in La Crosse, Wisconsin, UW-La Crosse, Bay Care Clinic, and it's in Green Bay, and Marshfield Clinic. The devices, this is where I really am hot on these devices. I don't know what they mean exactly, but they're important. I know some of them. Devices include preventing deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism, healthcare information technology or orthopedic surgery recovery. I've had a lot of that. Successful aging through integrated nutrition technology, and a laser-focused ablation system for when you have meniscus tears and knee replaced, you have to have something like that to help take care of it. So we're doing some very, very important medical device research right now. Our Stout Technology and Business Park, and I think we're one of the few schools outside Milwaukee, Madison that has what we call initially a research park. We changed that to technology and business park because that's really more of what it is. We opened that in 1990, and when I came here, it was a hayfield that was owned by our foundation through a gift that was given to us way back in the mid-'60s to open up some kind of industrial park. You may remember Steve Gunderson, our congressman at that time. He and I went out there with shovels and a photographer and dug dirt out of the ground, and that was the start of our tech park. We had partners in this, though, in 1990. We had City of Menominee. We had Northern States Power, now Xcel Energy. We had our foundation, which provided the land, and my office provided the management. From Hayfield in 1990, we now have 63 businesses and 28 buildings. We have 1,150 skilled workers with a payroll of over $50 million and an impact in the region of over $240 million. It's been a profound success story for Menominee and for the campus. We're transforming our campus through the internet. Our distance education program has grown significantly since 2005, 2006. We now have 677 courses on the internet. The nearest UW system campus was 338. Our course enrollment is nearly 16,000. That's one person in one course, and serving over 1,600 students in the outreach program. Stout now has 41 customized programs, including certificate programs, minor programs, major programs at 41. And so we see our future in part, an important part of our future is the internet-based off-campus program, is serving adult students. And that's exactly what we're doing. Although since we have the laptop program, we have a lot of faculty who do hybrid courses on campus as well. Our leadership system changes. We expanded the strategic planning group membership, so it's broad, 35 or 40 people. We work well with governance. We court them, they court us. We're good partners in trying to move the university forward in planning. And as we plan, when I came here, we always had 13, what they call 13 thrusts. Every year, 13 thrusts. I didn't know what it meant exactly, but they were the action items that they put together here to look at the future. The problem was none were funded. So we changed that in the by 1997, 1998. We went through a very open planning process that included open forums for all the faculty, and they had input to our ideas for the future, and that includes faculty and staff and maintenance staff and clerical staff. Everyone had access to ideas. And as we gathered these ideas, we rolled them into a summer program retreat, and we would come up with 4 or 5 what we call action items. But we never have an action item, even today, without funding that action item. So we have a clear line of vision between our vision, mission, vision, plan, and budget. And we simply do not plan in a vacuum for these action items. We fund what we say we're going to fund, and we do it. 2 years ago, we started a very transparent process. We moved from listening sessions in the fall, about 8 altogether, to now, the first day we're open as a campus, we identify 35 classrooms, we put TV screens in them, we assign people to those rooms, and then we share with them the action plans of the past, some ideas for the future, and ask them what's next for UW-Stout. We now have over 500 people a year participating in planning for UW-Stout, and we roll that into retreats for the following summer as well. So it's very open, very participatory. Everyone has a chance to tell us what they think we should be doing. We added, you said, we did. There's some concern that they would come to and tell us what should happen. We didn't follow through. Well, we normally did, but we began this, you said we did. You said we should have this, we did that to demonstrate that. This has been very effective as a feedback loop for our campus. And we are focusing more on high-impact action items. For example, by 2013, every program will be reduced to 120 credit hours. High-impact action items that should have an impact on students moving through our baccalaureate degrees in a very efficient way. The Polytechnic designation, I think, really has helped to transform who we are. We engaged the campus in this discussion. It was rancorous. It was at times probably unpleasant. But in 2007, when we got governance approval or support for the designation, it does provide a unique identity within our system and in the upper Midwest and in the country, actually. And it has become the umbrella for all of our planning processes. We established a new set of peers. Our peers are Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly Pomona. We even throw MIT in there for kicks. We have 25, we don't quite measure. That's our stretch goal. That's what we call it, our stretch goal. But we identify 25 nationwide, Midwest, West, East, and then we compare our data to them. And oddly enough, I find it very interesting, we compare rather well in most areas. We're not the lowest, we're not the highest, MIT is normally, but we compare very well as peers. So we actually established in this campus the first national conference for polytechnics, and now it moves around. I went to the Georgia Southern, now it's going to be out in Boston next year. But we started that because we thought we should have a voice nationwide for all the polys getting together and talk about who we are, how are we different, because we are different than a normal school. We're career focused, we use the applied learning philosophy, and we're very collaborative. So I think that the poly has really had an impact on who we are, how we view ourselves, and how we move toward a new future. The employment rate, we've said this time and time again, but about 98% will have a job. 3/4 of those are in their major within 6 months after leaving campus. Hasn't slipped in 25 years. The factors include career-focused majors. We don't have the typical liberal arts majors. I'm a historian by training. We don't have history here. We have historians who teach in our social science area, but not a major in history. The career economics I mentioned before is dynamic, and we have a very, very dynamic co-op program that now includes roughly 90% of our student body. We plan to have that 100% within 5 years. And with that, I'm very pleased, very proud to introduce one of our co-op students, Justin Nelson. Justin, I think from Rhinelander, I believe. Justin had an internship, a co-op with NASA. And this epitomizes the kind of student we like to have here. A mature, bright young man who had a great experience. He's going to share that with you now. So Justin, my real pleasure.
Thank you very much. As Chancellor Sorensen said, my name is Justin Nelson. I am currently a junior here at Stout. I'm originally from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. It's about half the size of Menominee. If you don't know what it is, you want to put your hand up. It's right about up there. Tiny little town. I graduated from Rhinelander High School in 2010, where I transferred to the University of Advancing Computer Technology in Tempe, Arizona. I wasn't a big fan of it, so I came back to my hometown and attended a community college, and I finally then came to Stout. While I was in Arizona and I wasn't liking it, it's a big contrast to our water and our beautiful trees up here, I got in contact with professors at UW-Madison, and I was asking them, I like computer science, I'm looking at more of the 3D video game concept, can you help me out? They actually directed me here to Stout, where I got in contact with our program director for game design development, Dr. Christie. And after having a couple correspondences with her, I decided that Stout was going to be the place where I was going to continue my education. For my first semester here, we have a class called Game Design and Development 101, and we actually have to release the games we develop. At that meeting, I got in contact with the program director for the Applied Mathematics and Computer Science major, Professor Laura Schmidt, and after talking with her about 20 to 30 minutes, she made a lot of good points saying that these two majors coincide very nicely, that when I'm in industry, the mathematics major would help me out a lot, and that doubling major would just be an overall better thing for me. So that's what I did, and that's where I stand today as a game design and development major and applied mathematics and computer science double major. So how I got my co-op this summer is we have a wonderful facility. We have a wonderful services on campus called Career Services. They deal with, as Chancellor Sorensen said, they'll be putting on the career conference happening next week. They sent around an email asking if anybody would like to apply to NASA. And, okay, guys, if you got this email, wouldn't you be like, I would like to apply to NASA? And that's kind of what I did. I was like, I would love to apply to NASA. And so I did. I actually applied to the Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. And through doing some research, I found another website where I could apply to any internship at NASA. And I did this. I was like, you know, what can it hurt? You always hope, but you never expect. So I did this, and about a week later, I got an email from Liz Ward at NASA Langley asking me if I would like to come. And if you ever had one of those moments where you just like stare and your brain shuts up, you're like, huh, seriously? That's probably what I was having at that time. It took me about, 10 seconds to actually understand what I was reading. And I replied, wrote in all capital letters because I was so happy. I replied, I think I even added my picture and put tons of arrows saying, are you talking about me, this guy, the guy I see every morning? Just to make sure the Justin Nelson she was talking about wasn't like some other Justin Nelson. She replied yes, saying that they wanted me, and I had a couple interviews with her, and then I actually had an interview with the Wisconsin Space Grant at UW-GB, and as they say, the rest is history, and I was headed to Langley for my summer. So you're probably wondering what I actually did over the summer. Well, that's pretty complicated. So I was told to let's make it easy for, if you're not in aeronautics, most people can understand. So what I basically did was I took already existing computer simulation, modified it to simulate using real-world onboard internet that's already on aircrafts right now to prove the viability of using internet over already existing systems, existing outdated systems on airplanes. That's a mouthful, I know. It's terrible to remember. So you're probably wondering, how do you prepare for this? I can tell you Stout doesn't offer NASA 101. That would have been an amazing class to take. But I think because of the double majors I have in game design and applied math and computer science, it actually gave me a very unique position, and that's actually one of the reasons I got selected. It is because, if you're simulating an aircraft, can you imagine the physics, the math that goes in to make it, realistic, turn and weigh and do everything it can do? So that my applied math and computer science actually helped me out quite a good deal. And then, as you can imagine, a computer simulation is basically a big video game. So I actually watched somebody fly the simulation for about 15 minutes, and they asked if anybody would like to fly it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd like to fly this, couple $1,000 simulation. So I got in, I did everything he was doing, beep, boop, 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 flying. And about 15 minutes, I was flying an aircraft. I couldn't tell you what any of it did, but I was able to fly it. So some benefits I got from having my internship with NASA this summer is my internship was a job. It was a job. I worked 45 to 50 hours a week. And since it was a job, there is no professor holding your hand. There is no professor telling you, oh, read chapter 2 and 3, and we're going to take a quiz, and if you need help, come find me. No, we all know industry is, if you don't know something, well, you better learn it, and you better be able to use it. So that's definitely been a big help coming back to Stout. If I have a test or if I don't understand something, it's not, oh, boo-hoo is me. It's, okay, I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to go find out. I'm going to go use the resources at my disposal to figure out what I need to know and what I need to learn. And as most of you can imagine, when you say NASA, people their ears perk up. They're like, oh, what'd you say? Being able to put NASA on your resume, it's not going to hurt anything. Let's just say that. It's not going to hurt anything. Some benefits NASA actually got out of me working for them is, let's be honest, interns are cheap. They didn't have to hire a full research team and take time out of their day to prove this concept. Over the course of 10 weeks, I was actually able to prove the concept, me and my team were. And what this is going to benefit actually to all of us is in about 5 years is hopefully once it gets into the industry, it's going to revolutionize the industry. If you've ever flown and you were about to land and you feel like you're going in a circle, you probably are. It's actually called a holding pattern, and what it is because you can't land and there's something preventing you from landing on the tarmac. And as you can imagine, this wastes time, this wastes fuel, this hurts the environment. So if we can revolutionize and we can reduce and get rid of all this, it's going to just save us as consumers, hundreds of dollars. So there are two questions people normally ask me once they heard I work for NASA. If you can see that picture. First, did I get to fly the airplane in the background? I can tell you, no, I did not. That airplane has a redesigned aerodynamic tail. It cost about $5 million. I was just an intern. They don't let you touch things like that. Plus, without having a pilot's license, yeah, that wouldn't have been good. So, the second question that most people ask me is, what was my most memorable experience at Langley? This is kind of like asking a parent to pick their favorite child. I was flown to California for a week, shown things only, top secret people who are working on them get to see. I mean, I got to see an airplane that can go into space, land, and do this every other week, and people who are trying to make this commercially viable. Or being able to present at NASA headquarters to top NASA officials. I got to present to the fifth most important at NASA, below the president of NASA, who reports directly to President Obama. Or going to work every day for NASA and going through a security checkpoint, showing my clearance badge, and being waved through a security checkpoints with guys who have M4s, and if you do something wrong, they will be following you. I mean, it was just an amazing summer. I was quoted in a NASA article saying, I work for NASA. If you don't get up every morning when you're working for NASA and love what you do, there's something wrong. And it's just awesome. And I can tell you, because of Stout, I had just one of the most amazing summers I've ever had. So as I said, Stout has given me an amazing background. Because of my two majors, I was in the unique position to actually be able to do what I did this summer. And I believe that's because of three reasons. First, I believe it's because of the size. Stout is a smaller campus, and I believe that actually benefits us in the long run. I'm not just a number here. I am Justin Nelson. I am who I am. And it's because of that you can get that one-on-one with professors. You can go into office hours. They see how hard you are working, and it really benefited me in the long run. If you remember the video, there was a professor called Professor Schmidt. He is actually one of the professors I asked to write my recommendations letter, one of my recommendations letter. And when I was down at Langley, I was told that my recommendations letter were some of the best recommendations letters. She keeps them because they were so phenomenal, and that they just praised me to no end. And I truly, truly believe that it is because of the size of Stout that I was able to get that. And I can never, ever thank my two professors enough for what they have done. I believe what I did this summer is truly a direct result of them. The second reason I believe Stout was able to prepare me well for this is because of as Chancellor Sorensen said, we are a polytechnic school. We don't just teach you, okay, move on, test time. We teach you, we have lab, you show, you learn something, which is kind of what you want, because when we're going out in industry, you don't want to have all these theories and be like, okay, I know what that is, but I don't know how to put it into practice. So the Polytechnic side of Stout definitely gave me a good background, and I knew the foundations I had would be able to support me in what I was going to do. An extension from this, the third thing, I think, is the importance of co-ops and internships. As Chancellor Sorensen said, he's going to try to get 100% of students to do a co-op or internship. And I think this is going to be very beneficial in the long run. Okay, so you learn something, you prove to your professor, you can demonstrate it. Well, that's still different than doing it in industry. After my time at Langley, I can definitely attest to that. It's completely different. You know, you don't have the professors. Even though Stout is behind you, it's just definitely good to take what you learned and to know you either know it or you don't, and should I go back to school and should I take more classes in it. So some goals I have for myself after leaving here at Stout is I'd like to continue to go on to get my PhD. I'd like to actually go to an Ivy school and represent and show that, you know, even students from small schools can attend these high-level schools. I would also like then to open my own software development company, and then after being in the industry for a few years, one of the biggest things I would like to come back and do is to teach here at Stout. Stout has given me everything. Stout has been such a wonderful experience for me. To be able to give back and to teach the next generation of students would be just one of the greatest things I think in my life. So in conclusion, I had an absolutely fantastic summer, and I give it all to Stout. It's because of Stout that I was able to do what I did. And I truly, truly believe in my heart that I would not have had the amazing summer without Stout, without having come here. So I'd like to thank Chancellor Sorensen for giving me the opportunity to talk to such a distinguished board as yourselves. And I would like to thank you for taking time to listen to me, and I hope you enjoy this campus as much as I have. Thank you.
What Justin doesn't know is when I give him his graduation certificate, there's a contract for him coming back to teach. But I think when I talked to Justin, I saw his name in a publication we had, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. So I asked him to come in and talk to me about this, and he said that when I forget Justin, the other schools that are represented, where did Justin go? But they were, what were some of the schools?
MIT, Cambridge, Berkeley,
yeah.
Big name schools.
Some of the real big-name schools, and he was somewhat, terrified at working with people from those schools. So he realized he had the same kind of background, and he was as smart as they were, and he did extremely well. So he's the kind of young student that we like to highlight at UW-Stout. I'm very, very proud of Justin. Now I'm going to introduce Doug Mell, my communications director, to talk briefly about economic impact studies. So, Doug?
Thank you, Chancellor. UW-Stout conducted an economic impact study over the summer. Most campuses here have had economic impact studies conducted over the years. We have too. The consultant that we used, EMSI of Idaho, specializes in higher education. They've done over 1,200 both in the United States and internationally. The difference with EMSI is that they actually measure the economic impact of the skills and the earnings of our graduates and the resulting increased productivity in the business and industries. They basically look at the value of what our graduates contribute to the economy, which is something that in previous economic development studies that have been conducted for UW-Stout was never measured. They also, and I think this is very important, they measure the return on investment that students and the taxpayers receive for their contributions and investments in UW-Stout. They actually look at the economic benefit of what a UW-Stout education means for both the students, the graduates, and for the taxpayers. And they also look at the benefits to the public and added income and avoided social costs. One of the benefits research has shown is that a degree improves health, lowers crime, and reduces welfare and unemployment, and that does have an economic value. And they've developed an economic model that looks at it. And I think this is also very important. They're much more conservative or refined than some of the previous economic development studies that we have had conducted for us. AMSI goes beyond the standard multiplier analysis. I think that's contained in a lot of the previous economic impact studies that we've seen. And it measures the impact of UW-Stout as an employer and an institution that promotes both quality and the quantity of the labor market. And we have a short video that talks about the results of this study. We're having some volume problems. Uh-oh.
Since 1891, UW-Stout has been making a difference in the Chippewa Valley, the state of Wisconsin, and the Midwest. Our graduates, steeped in the applied learning model that UW-Stout was founded on, are valued in the workplace, So much so that an astounding 98% of our recent graduating class were employed 6 months after leaving campus. Our employment rate has been more than 95% for 25 years. Now, for the first time, UW-Stout has measured scientifically the economic worth of the skills our students bring to the economy. We also have measured the total amount that our proud institution contributes to the local economy. We also measured what our students and their parents, as well as the state taxpayers, make on their investment in UW-Stout. We believe the results show that we really are a good deal for both our students and the taxpayers. Here are the facts, as reported by EMSI Consultants. The skills that UW-Stout students obtain from our faculty and staff contribute about $178.7 million every year to the regional economy in increased productivity. UW-Stout's operations contribute another $104 million to the region, while the spending of non-local students adds another $8.3 million to the economy, and visitors add $2.7 million. In all, UW-Stout contributes an amazing $293.7 million a year to the regional economy through students' productivity, operations, and student and visitor spending. UW-Stout makes up 2.4% of the total regional economy. The report also showed that we're a great deal for both our students and the taxpayers. At the midpoint of their careers, our graduates can expect to earn $23,100 a year, or 94% more than a high school graduate. That means a UW-Stout graduate can expect to earn $947,100 more than a high school graduate over their lifetime. A UW-Stout graduate will earn, on average, $14,400 more a year than a student with an associate's degree. Furthermore, for every dollar that a student invests to come to UW-Stout, they will see their income increase by $5.50. Students enjoyed a 15.3% return on their education investment at UW-Stout and will recoup their entire cost in less than 10 years. We say that's quite a deal. Taxpayers make out well too. For every dollar that the taxpayer invests in UW-Stout, they get $2.10 back in the form of higher tax receipts and social savings. State and local taxpayers get a 7% return on their investment in UW-Stout, a much better return than the private sector usually offers. We hope that you have learned a lot about UW-Stout's contribution to our economy through the skills our students bring to the workplace and through our economic activity. We also hope that we have shown that we work hard to maximize the rate of return on investments that our students and taxpayers make in UW-Stout and give back much more than we receive from these groups.
So what's the future of this university? Our vision is very straightforward. We'll continue to build a distinguished university based on the principles of all premier polytechnic universities by supporting programs that wed theory and practice, that have dynamic outreach programs, and continue to use state-of-the-art technology in all educational and business functions. We envision a school that will have to rethink the fiscal model. It's broken. The covenants are gone. We have to, when you have low state investment with potential capped tuition annually, we have to rethink the model, the fiscal model. I don't know what that is right now, but clearly we'll engage in that discussion beginning this year. We will establish an e-college to put an e-college, all internet-based programs in an e-college with appropriate leadership, with quality control, strategic planning, faculty development, and distinct identity. we will become a vibrant, emerging research institution. We're demonstrating that now in our Discovery Center. We're going to a donor in only about 2 weeks, asking for more support for a research institute within the Discovery Center. So we think this is a very important part of our future. We'll increase our research funds to about $15 to $18 million from $8 today. Do that within 5 to 7 years. Build a foundation of worth $60 million in assets. We're now at 40 roughly. We'll develop the next stage of the e-scholar program, the laptop program, how to use technology even more effectively in the learning paradigm. And these are more short-term. The last 3, we will eliminate the minority retention gap by 2025. We'll achieve 100% participation rate in experiential learning co-op programs and reduce time to degree to 120 hours of credit by next fall. So I hope that we presented to you an image of who we are, where we were, where we're going, and our very bright future. So I want to thank you very much for being here today. Thank you very much for listening to us talk about this very fine university. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chancellor Sorensen and Justin Nelson, the Justin Nelson from UW-Stout, and Doug Mell for that. We're going to be able to hear a little bit more about UW-Stout tomorrow morning from Chancellor Sorensen and others during our Friday morning session. This morning, we're going to talk about something that we don't often talk about, at least in the meetings. Outside the meetings we do, and that's sports. Doug kind of set the scene there with that on Wisconsin that came from his... so we knew that was coming. Sure.
Yeah, excuse me, Regent Speck. Just one question, Chuck. You and Justin appropriately emphasized the value of the co-op experience and your incredibly positive job placement rates. Do you have a sense of how many students wind up going to work in workplaces where they do their co-op experience?
We should trace that down. It's high. For example, I met a young woman the other night at one of our nice new restaurants, and engaged in conversation. She had she's in retail merchandising. 3 internships, California, Midwest, and East. Offered 3 jobs, and she's a first semester senior. So I don't know. We should track that down because it normally leads to Doug Mell's son just finished a co-op program in St. Paul. I believe the letter said they want to offer him a job. So it's not one-to-one, but very close to it, I think.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead. That's fine. As I said, we're going to talk a little sports, and specifically we're going to discuss the ways that this board interacts with intercollegiate athletics programs across the UW system. Our board, as you know, has a fiduciary responsibility to provide oversight and protect the reputation and the integrity of all UW programs. And that's true from the classroom to the research lab and to the athletic field. As the university's governing board, it falls to us to ensure that the appropriate and adequate policies and processes apply in all areas of university operations. We'll hear today about a proposed process designed to enhance the routine and emphasize routine communications with the UW institutions related to their athletic programs. Let me make it clear, the intent I think that we have here today is not to remove any decision-making authority from the chancellors, who bear direct responsibility for overseeing their own athletic programs. This action is simply a straightforward-looking process that will facilitate consistent information sharing and oversight across the UW system. As many of us will attest, the board has a long-standing interest in this matter, and I'm pleased that we are bringing it forward today for discussion. Again, we're looking forward to good feedback on this proposed process, but we're really not taking any action today. With that, I'll turn it over to Kevin to introduce our presenters.
Thank you, President Smith. Last month, we welcomed thousands of new and returning UW students back to our campuses with the start of a new academic year. As in every year, we see fresh and exciting opportunities in both academics and athletics. We have a proud history of athletics in the UW system, and for good reason. Over the years, UW institutions have won a total of 123 national championships. Our UW athletics programs are highly valued and regarded by our students, our faculty, staff, alumni, and donors. This affinity extends beyond the local community to national and international audiences. These programs provide valuable experiences for student athletes and opportunities to engage broader communities. As Regent Smith said, a strong priority is to uphold the integrity of our athletics programs, preserving public trust and confidence in every element of campus operations. Strong leadership by UW chancellors and athletic directors has been instrumental in establishing and sustaining successful athletics programs that the entire state of Wisconsin can admire. To keep Wisconsin athletics moving in the right direction, we are looking to enhance the governance and oversight of all UW-NCAA athletics programs by further opening up lines of communication between chancellors and athletic directors and my office and this board. As we all know, college athletics has received a lot of attention recently, some of it not very positive. In that context, it would be natural to wonder why we're talking about this topic at this time. Let me reassure you all there's no smoking gun that compels us to do this. There is nothing prompting this discussion other than a recognition of the changed environment post the Penn State tragedy and this board's desire to do its job in an ever more transparent and effective way. I think that's called continuous improvement. Just as the chancellors report periodically on significant aspects of academic programming and financial performance, the proposed framework, which you'll hear about in a moment, will ensure routine sharing of information about high-visibility UW athletics programs. Most of the information included in this proposed process is already reported to the NCAA. But this board has not had an opportunity in the past to gather that information together, to analyze it, and to have a conversation about it with each institution's chancellor and athletic director. Senior Vice President Michael Morgan and Internal Audit Director Elizabeth Dion will now lay out a draft process for us along those lines. Then we very much want to hear the board's reactions and any suggested revisions. Chancellors are welcome to join in at that point as well, and we have some special guests who can join in the conversation whom Michael will introduce shortly. After that discussion, Michael will come back to suggest next steps in the process that we're laying out. So with that, I will turn it over to Senior Vice President Michael Morgan.
Thank you, Kevin, and good morning, everyone. Kevin has really done a good job in outlining our lead-up to this discussion this morning related to board responsibilities for the oversight of NCAA collegiate athletics. As he pointed out, the board has a fiduciary responsibility to provide oversight and to protect the integrity of all UW programs, including athletics. What Elizabeth and myself will do this morning is outline for the board a framework and timeline for gathering and reporting information and data on the operations of UW3 Division I athletic programs. As some of the most visible programs at higher education institutions here in our system as well as around the country, athletics provide experiences for student athletes and opportunities to engage the broader community. The UW system currently has 3 Division I NCAA athletic programs, Green Bay, Madison, of course, and Milwaukee. We have 1 Division II program at Parkside and 9 Division III programs, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Oshkosh, Platteville, River Falls, Stevens Point, Stout, Superior, and Whitewater. I didn't want to leave anyone out. During fiscal year 2011 alone, these 13 athletic programs generated nearly $140 million in revenue. Over 5,600 UW student athletes participate in NCAA sanctioned competition each year. And more than 1.4 million fans attend UW athletics events all around the state, UW NCAA athletic events around the state. These contests are also broadcast around the state of Wisconsin and across the nation and around the world and generate substantial revenues for our athletic programs. Now, much has been written about governing boards and their role in the oversight of NCAA athletics. Inasmuch as collegiate athletics exists for the betterment of the student body, student athletes, the university, governing boards have a responsibility to provide for the orderly operations of athletic programs. The focus of the accountability framework that Liz and I are going to be talking about, and that is before you, is to allow for the proper discharge of Board of Regents' fiduciary responsibilities to ensure four things. First, the well-being and success of UW system student athletes. Two, the financial viability of UW athletic programs. Three, the success of the academic mission of its institutions, and to provide a well-defined, open, and unambiguous reporting structure for D1 institutions in the UW system, which we hope will result in good communications between UW institutions and this board, the Board of Regents. Now, while the focus of our discussion today will be on Division I athletic programs, a similar approach will be forthcoming for our board review of D2 and D3 intercollegiate athletic programs for the UW system. I want to reiterate something here that Kevin talked about. Nothing that we propose here today or we offer for discussion is intended to replace existing institutional controls for our D1 intercollegiate athletic departments. All three of the D1 institutions on which we focus today have either an athletic board or a committee designed to provide institutional oversight of their respective athletic programs. Actually, UW-Milwaukee, UW-Madison have athletic boards, and UW-Green Bay has a athletic committee. These institutional boards are designed to provide an opportunity for the university community to have input into the operations of NCAA intercollegiate athletics on their campuses. These athletic boards have similar characteristics. They are comprised of members from the faculty, the student body, student athletes, academic staff, the institution's alumni association, and others. The largest single group of stakeholders represented in this group on these boards are faculty. Most members are elected, and some appointed after consultation, and in many cases with the consent of the chancellor. The duties and responsibilities of the respective athletic boards are very similar. They are empowered with the responsibility and authority to take all actions appropriate for the supervision of intercollegiate athletic programs, including but not limited to, and I'll give you some examples of the things that they do. They establish and implement academic and other eligibility standards for recruiting student athletes. They establish and implement academic standards such as grade point and class attendance and other requirements for participation in intercollegiate athletics. They oversee the division of intercollegiate athletics on their respective campuses. They establish and implement policies on equity and non-discrimination. They participate actively in the development of athletic department budgets and approve them for recommendations to their respective chancellor. And they monitor compliance with all rules and regulations of the NCAA and the rules of the conferences in which they compete. Again, the framework we offer y'all for consideration leaves the management and operation of athletic programs with the chancellor, the athletic director, the athletic board at each institution. And we look at the structure, we examine it, and we recommend that we leave it in place because, quite frankly, it's worked well for our member institutions. Under the program we offer, each of the UW-D1 institutions will submit an annual report to the Board of Regents. That report will be the basis for the presentation annually before the board by the chancellor and the director of athletics. The structure and reporting process, which we will outline in a few minutes, is informed by discussions and reviews of materials and best practices from many institutions. Liz and I have done a lot of reading and talking to other institutions about this. But what informs this process are materials and best practices from institutions like the NCAA, the University of California State System, the University of Arizona System, We've looked at the University of North Carolina, and just a few days ago we looked at, upon the suggestion of one of our regents, the Maryland University system. We also search for best practices in the research and writings of AGB, who, as you know, is the Association of Governing Boards, and Regent Pruitt is a member of their board, is a distinguished member of their board.
Well, let's we're good at something.
And who have been doing some really, really good work in this area for about 5 years. So a lot of work has gone into what we put before you today. I've asked Elizabeth Dion, our director of our Office of Audit Reporting and Management, to lay out our 4-part framework reporting process we offer for consideration and discussion today. I'm also asking that Darrell Brazell, who is the Vice Chancellor at UW-Madison, to offer his thoughts on this framework. And also with us today, and who will offer their thoughts on this, are the Athletic Director from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Barry Alvarez, and the Deputy Athletic Director from UW-Madison, Sean Frazier. So we'll ask them to come forward after Liz has had an opportunity to present and we've answered any questions that y'all might have. So that's the process. Let's get Liz on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael. As Michael mentioned earlier, the Association of Governing Boards produced a statement on board responsibilities for intercollegiate athletics. And we've looked at this, and the framework that we're going to discuss today attempts to really take the spirit and intent of that board or their statement and provide that to you. One of the fundamental concepts within the statement is that boards should request that accurate, appropriate, and unfiltered data be provided regularly and in a timely manner on such topics as admissions, academic achievement, graduation rates, finances, and athletic conference matters. So as we discuss the framework, you'll see that we've tried to encompass all of these key components. I'd also like to note that the framework being discussed, there's no industry standard, there's no model framework that people use. As Michael mentioned, we've done extensive research of other systems, what they're doing, and considered the AGV's guidance and attempted to come up with something to present today. The first segment of the 4-part framework, which this is in your board materials, and I'm just going to try to elaborate on the materials that you've been provided already. But the first segment is really designed to enhance the two-way communication between the board or designated committee and institutional leadership related to athletics by having that institutional leadership present via report and an in-person presentation information annually on certain athletics information. This routine sharing of information will just help ensure that the board is informed and able to exercise their fiduciary oversight. By reviewing consistent information on an annual basis, the board should be able to assess key trends and other conditions that they should be aware of. One thing that I would encourage is as we talk through different components of the framework, for the board to consider what is that consistent information, because I think that carefully planning what the board would like to see is important up front, so you're not kind of adjusting things year by year. So only if you have that consistent information can you truly assess trends. So for purposes of this discussion, we've broken down some of the potential categories of information that the board would be presented into: academics and student-athlete welfare, financial matters, and compliance. In addition, other relevant information such as competitive achievements may be something the board wishes to have information on. This slide that I have on the screen, within your board materials, we provide some information on 8 different things that the board might wish to have included in a report and presentation. This slide attempts to kind of recategorize that and just demonstrate, instead of just numeric order, what type of information the various things, what category these things would fall into. So I'm going to talk through each of these. First, let's discuss items within the academics and student welfare. So the AGB statement indicates that boards should be certain that intercollegiate athletics programs reflect the institution's academic values and does not detract from or undermine them. Some of the information that could be of value is, start with the athletics department mission statement. Continue, as I discuss these topics, to just provide some insights that the AGB provides. But the AGB believes that the mission statement should be reviewed by the board, and the board should consider some questions, and I'll provide some of those. First, are the mission, values, and goals of the athletics program compatible with those of the institution? Second, does the administrative structure of the institution and athletics department allow the institution to achieve its mission and goals? Also, what benchmarks should be used to gauge the success of athletics? Are they consistent with the institution's mission and values? So those are some questions that you'd consider. The second category is academic progress rate data. I think President Riley mentioned earlier, and it's very true, the information that we're talking about is largely available and largely already produced. Academic progress rate data is one of those things. This is a term-by-term measure of eligibility and retention for Division I student athletes that was developed as an early indicator of eventual graduation rates. It's a numeric scale. There's 1,000 points possible. The NCAA has established certain thresholds that penalties would be assessed if teams and institutions fall below, such as loss of scholarships. So they're currently going through a transition period, bringing that to an APR of 930. So institutions currently report this data to the NCAA, as I mentioned, and the NCAA compile some robust reports. In fact, if you were to go out to the NCAA's website, you could search by institution and see how different sports rank both within the sport, within their division, within public institutions, and all sorts of different levels of data. So that's the academic progress rate data. A third item in this overall category is graduation rate data and other academic and admissions information. The AGB states that boards should review graduation rate data, information on the number and rates of special admissions of athletes compared with that of the regular student body, and information on the declared majors of student athletes. Some of this information, such as graduation rate data, is already reported to the NCAA, and similar to the academic progress rate data, there's information already compiled that shows graduation rate data of the student athletes compared to the regular student body, and it's even available within various demographics and by sport. Some other information related to declared majors and special admissions may need to be separately gathered if that's included in the final reporting framework. So that's the academics and student welfare. Next, I'll move on to financial information. The AGB states that boards should devote the necessary time to understand the complexities of the financing of intercollegiate athletics. You know, the financing of athletics is very different than the other parts of higher education systems. There's complex matters such as revenue flows from ticket sales, television contracts, booster clubs, corporate sponsorships, athletic conferences, as well as direct and indirect institutional support. So it's a very complex structure. Some questions that the AGB recommends that boards ask include, are the financial reports complete and accurate, and do they include all of the sources of revenue and expenses? Also, to what extent, financial or otherwise, does the institution subsidize intercollegiate athletics with allocated revenues, and how does the growth of those revenues compare to that of other programs? So some information that we've listed on the slide that could be helpful are financial highlights, just including, is the program operating at a deficit? You know, what type of debt is there that's issued to support athletics? What is the reliance on donor contributions and things of that nature? There's also a budget that can provide you with just some base understanding of what is the expected finances, and that can be compared to actual results. The last thing in that section is the agreed upon procedures report. Some of you may be familiar with people talking about an annual NCAA audit. That's really an agreed upon procedures report. The CPA, I have to say, they're separate and distinct things, but both would provide you with some indication of, you know, is the financial information complete and accurate, and are there compliance issues that you should be aware of? So those are some components of financial information. The last big category on the slide is compliance, and there's two components that we've included there. Again, both of these are currently performed in the normal course of operations. Evaluation reports required by the NCAA are required. In fact, at least once every 4 years, the rules compliance program of athletics is subject to the evaluation by an authority outside of the athletics department. Typically, these take the form of an internal audit type report or just some other external group performing those reports. And it covers a variety of topics from governance and organization, various team limits, recruiting, camps and clinics, self-reporting of rules violations, a number of different categories. And so these are already performed and could provide the board with some indication of some compliance matters. Another item is the institution's comprehensive self-study. This is something that is required every 10 years by Division I schools, and it focuses on 3 areas: governance and commitment to rules compliance, academic integrity, and gender, diversity, and student-athlete well-being. These are performed by an institution committee and then subject to a separate independent or external peer review process. So those are really the components discussed in the first part of the 4-part framework that we were going to discuss today. I think I'll pause here before moving on to see if there's any questions at this time.
Jerry.
President Smith mentioned at the outset as to our role, this word fiduciary, which of course brings to mind revenues, which brings to mind this business of auditing. So question, Elizabeth, who audits athletic department? Let's just pick on the Madison campus. Is it done by the campus? Is it done by outside people? And what would be the frequency of the audits? And as you think about a role here, perhaps an enhanced role, are you thinking about your office looking at those products?
Currently, the Madison's rule compliance program, the required evaluation reports are performed by the Madison campus internal audit group, and they perform those in accordance with the NCAA requirements. To date, we haven't contemplated what the role of the system office should be as compared to the campus, but I do believe in our annual risk assessment process where we identify the audit plan. I would encourage, if that's an area that members of the Board of Regents would like our office to perform some additional responsibilities and additional audits, that be indicated, because it clearly is an area that our office could be involved in audits. We just haven't contemplated and decided on that role going forward.
Let me ask you, you've identified a lot of areas of information that could be provided to us at an annual presentation. And in looking in the materials that's been provided, it indicates that a lot of that information, and you've said again today, is currently available. Is that information that is at this point transmitted to the system, the University of Wisconsin system, or would we have to, at least at this, I'm trying to get in my mind, is this going to be a change in how things are currently done? Recognizing that the information is currently available, are we now suggesting that we have a transmittal to University of Wisconsin system, not only in a presentation, but in a regular reporting methodology?
Yes, this would be a change.
This would be a dramatic change from the kind of data and information that we receive on an annual basis from our NCAA D1 intercollegiate programs in the system. Currently, we don't receive a lot of information, quite frankly. We review a lot of information that's available, as Liz pointed out, online and other places. But this will be a more formal process where we, as you will see from the outline, would ask that information be provided to y'all. We would then review that information, including but not limited to any audits that may have been done by the NCAA of our D1 programs.
Any other questions at this point in time for Regent Bartow?
Michael, I think I heard you say that the athletic boards and committee that we have among the three E1 universities have been effective.
Yeah, based on, well, go ahead. Why don't you finish your question?
Well,
is that the question?
I heard that.
Yes, I think you have. Yes, I think you have.
My question is, in this annual report and presentation that we're considering to the Board of Regents, why wouldn't the chair of those organizations also be involved in that report and presentation? I mean, I think they're the ones with the immediate oversight responsibility, and why wouldn't they have a role to play?
Nothing we're proposing here would prevent them from having a role. I think that's a decision that the campus should make in terms of whether or not they want to bring, for example, the chair of the athletic board or a member of the athletic board to those annual presentations. That's a campus function, and I think we should, advise and consult with chancellors on, the kind of people that y'all might want to see before this board. But we thought, would be. It's not our decision to make. If you want to strongly suggest to the chancellor that there be a member from the athletic board at those presentations, I think this is the time to do it.
It just seems to me that would.
I agree.
That would empower
the
committee and the board, the athletic board, if they had a direct reporting role with the Board of Regents.
We're not proposing that they have a direct reporting role, and here's why. The chancellor run their respective campuses. The chancellor runs athletics, chemistry, football, wax. The chancellor works with that athletic board, and I think that athletic board is a campus institution, right, that advises the chancellor, and the chancellor should decide, right, how to report to this board on issues related to athletics. I don't think. We didn't contemplate that an institutional board at one of our campuses would report directly to the Board of Regents without going through the Chancellor's office. What we're proposing is what I just said happen, and that is the athletic director, the athletic board, if it's going to have a conversation with this board, have it through the Chancellor, and that's the framework that we've set up.
Okay, well, you did mention the athletic director making presentation.
Right.
And that is a direct relationship.
Right. And that's as far as we wanted to have staff to weigh into that, the affairs of the institution. Although, quite frankly, these questions come up a lot, and I think many of your fellow board members have comments on this issue.
Regent Milner.
Thoughts on this issue.
Then Regent Bradley. Regent Milner first name.
I currently sit on the athletic board at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I have been on it for 3 years as an alum representative, and I'm in my 4th and final year at that time. And I'd like to share with my colleagues on the board that the reporting that comes from the athletic department, not only to the board, to the athletic board, but more importantly to the standing committees, which are very involved in rigorous standing committees, is both detailed and encompasses not only the materials that we've been presented with, but even a broader range of materials. I have been, as was said, the board is predominantly faculty, but we do have 4 community members, so we represent sort of the outside, looking at the dynamics between the campus and the athletic department. And I must say that the involvement and the oversight by the board members is active, involved, and rigorous, and that the athletic department is very engaged and very helpful with getting the information necessary. I feel we have an additional responsibility that isn't discussed here, but it's also the personnel committee. And through the personnel committee, the board members have an opportunity to read evaluations of the coaches, which is another perspective that we haven't addressed here, but that's an important component of what we're talking about. which is not only protection of the financial viability, but of the student athletes, both from a perspective of their academic performances and also as their welfare. So I would encourage a reliance by this board on the work that's done by the athletic board, by the existing athletic board, because it will perform an important function for us as board members. One other comment. Regent Higgins might supplement this, because Regent Higgins was a member of the athletic board 10 years ago? Or longer than that?
Should have been longer than that.
Regent Bradley.
Well, I just think it's important that we keep our focus and not have anybody think that we're getting into a chancellor saying, I'm about to do this and I need board consent or board permission. I see this as, you know, the chancellors run the campuses, these departments, in my opinion, are functioning. I see this as just another aspect of a chancellor being accountable to the system president who reviews the chancellors annually, and then we get an evaluation of the chancellor. I just want to be really careful that we're not inserting ourselves into a campus responsibility and an athletic committee or an athletic department responsibility.
But if I could follow what you just mentioned, I would agree with you. I don't think we should get involved in a lot of those things, but at least as I'm hearing all of this, and God forbid anything really horrible happens, I'm trying to think of, as a region, will whatever happens, will the focus and the attention be solely on the chancellor and that board, and nobody's going to think of us? I think at some point somebody's going to say, where was the governing body? And I'm not sure they're just going to be focused on the athletic board and the chancellor. I think they're going to see us as the governing body. So, but I do agree with Regent Bradley that we shouldn't be meddling, so to speak, and really separate the policy from governing or the administration. But I hope that in saying that, we don't make it appear as if there's little or no liability that we have, because we've got the boards, the athletic boards, we've got the chancellor. I just get a little nervous that in light of what has been happening nationally on some of these things, there's always that going to the trustees or board of directors, and unfortunately or fortunately, we bear that title.
If I could just comment.
Sure.
You know, we do bear that responsibility, but just think of all the horrible things that can happen on a campus, and in a 10-year period do happen on a campus. So we have oversight responsibilities, but we don't run those campuses. We have a CEO who's responsible in reporting to us. So there might be something horrible happening in student housing, and people would say, well, where was that governing board? Well, that governing board was there holding accountable the executive who is running that campus.
Right.
Well, we've I'm sorry, Ed?
Really nothing new to add, but I agree. In a time when we're talking about flexibilities for our campuses and letting the chancellor do their job that they've been trained to do, I find it difficult to now want to know everything there is to know about the athletic departments, and have. I know we have ultimate responsibility, but I think that getting a small bit of information to assure us that things are okay as far as some of these areas go, so that we know, will help us do our fiduciary responsibility. Everybody out, Claire thinks that I know everything there is going on in the athletic department.
You do, don't you?
I've never met anybody in the administration of that department.
You will after today.
Pretend like I do, but I don't. So I guess my point is,
I understand we need the information, but let's hold on to our hats and be careful what we ask for.
Okay. Regent, the before recognized expert, Regent Pruitt, would you distinguish, I thought the word was?
I bear no such expertise, but I would like to suggest that I think, as clearly as we can define as we go through this, and I think President Smith, you outlined, and Michael and Elizabeth have as well, that we're at the beginning stage of a conversation of trying to define and reach agreement on definitions. And I think we are, as a governing board, ultimately accountable for the athletic programs of the institutions. And that is our responsibility, is our fiduciary responsibility. And it seems to me that a key component of this is board education. As we try to figure out, as we sort of chart whatever the future role is, what is the appropriate level of oversight, and we need to educate ourselves with the help of the campuses, the athletic boards, the athletic directors, the chancellors, everyone, to try to figure out what is the place that we are appropriately going to exercise that oversight. And there is no doubt that there are equal dangers to both being too high at a level so as to simply be getting formulaic reports that mean very little and provide no real effective oversight, and equally, potentially worse, micromanagement of the athletic departments and the athletic programs, which should not be our role. And in fact, constraining the appropriate role of the chancellor, who is ultimately responsible. But I just would like to suggest that I think board education, as we get more and more comfortable going forward, is going to be very important. And to have clear lines of authority, transparency, accountability, not micromanagement, I think would appear to me to be some of the standards that we ought to be applying to this discussion and any future discussion.
I think you raise a good point that this item is not meant for, this is the one and only discussion. As I think President Riley and we will indicate at the conclusion, this is going to come back at a later date. But it is, in terms of some education and some initial thought, reaction, not only from us, but from athletic department at UW-Madison and others, is important today, as opposed to having the debate that's going to end all debates on this question. Regent Vasquez, did you have something?
Just to interject maybe a little levity, it seems that athletics is highly regulated and almost prescriptive as to what, where, when, and how. Why do we have two boards and one committee? Is there a distinction as to why one is called a committee versus a board?
I don't know. I think it's more a local campus culture, because if you look at UW Green Bay's committee, it does a lot of the same things that are prescribed, and the responsibilities look a lot like Milwaukee and Madison. So I think it's, what's in the title in this case, not very much at all.
And I wasn't asking to imply that they changed. I was just wondering if there was some difference of function or responsibility.
Tomato, tomato.
Bridget Miller.
When you talk about education, I think we need to remember Division III. Because we're talking about in our Division I, either through the athletic board or through the committees, or through the committee at Green Bay, we're talking about established procedures and an oversight that's existed for a number of years. When we get to Division III, it's a whole different education process, and that's something we need to understand too. Because what we're dealing with is not simply 3 campuses in Division I, we're dealing with 13. And true, the visibility of the Division I is far greater than the Division III schools, but it's still, the Division III schools are still running athletic departments that are both important to the campuses, important to the students, and could have some significant implications for us as a governing body.
Yeah, as I indicated, Regent, we're going to, as we finish up our discussion on what appropriate oversight for the board for D1, we'll wade into the waters of D2, which means we'll sit down and talk to Chancellor Ford. She's the only D2 program in the system. And we had a good beginning discussion last night. She's very proud of her D2 programs, particularly their race walkers. And then we have 9, the history of race walking at UW Parkside, I think is how she framed it. And then we have 9 D3 institutions, which we actually have gathered a lot of information about over the years because we have audited those programs on a regular cycle. So, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of work to be done here, and that area is one that we'll drill down on and hopefully have a good discussion once again about how y'all do your work in overseeing those programs.
All right. We got through methodology that's been proposed for annual presentations to the board. I think the next one is some of the periodic review of significant financial arrangements and compensation agreements.
Yeah, so my remarks will be very brief related to this. This is really just a recommendation of continuation of current practices related to review of significant coaches' contracts and other significant, this could be significant athletic director contracts as well, because there's an existing region policy that requires review of those significant contracts, as well as approvals of contracts exceeding $500,000, and so that encompasses many contracts at UW-Madison. Also, the review of segregated fees and other items that are included within the annual operating budget. We simply recommend continuation of that practice. Are there any questions on that?
Questions or comments on that? So this would be just business as usual, the way we've done things, and you don't suggest any changes to that?
There's none that I'm proposing right now. I think the AGB does recommend review of all major sports coaches' contracts as well as athletic directors, and so to the extent something didn't meet the existing thresholds, which is I believe 75% of the UW system's president's salary, the board could consider expanding upon that.
Okay, let's go on to the next, which is the annual certification letter.
Right, so the annual certification letter, this is a proposal that the Chancellor, Athletic Director, Athletics Compliance Officer, and other appropriate institution personnel sign a letter or prepare a certification that confirms to the best of their knowledge and belief statements related to various things. For anybody that's been involved in audit processes, I think of kind of a representation letter at the end of the audit that you provide to senior management to look over and make sure that they've told you and disclosed everything that you expect them to disclose. I'm going to just read some examples of how such a letter might read. Could read, in connection with your oversight of the institution's intercollegiate athletics program, we confirm to the best of our knowledge and belief the following. And I'll just give you a couple examples. There are no instances of known or suspected noncompliance with NCAA rules and regulations, or if there are, they could disclose those. There have been no modifications to the institution's gender equity plan from our previous self-study, and all aspects of the plan have been fully implemented. There are no investigations, monitoring reviews currently underway by the NCAA law enforcement officials or others, that haven't been previously disclosed through other processes. And so the certification letter would just be kind of an opportunity to make sure that all those items that the board wishes to be informed of were disclosed. And so that can be tailored uniquely. So that's part 3.
Questions or comments? Regent Bartel.
Come back again to the point I made before, which is we're listing here a number of people, in addition to the Chancellor, who should sign this letter, being the Athletic Director, the Athletics Compliance Officer, and other appropriate institution personnel, but we don't mention the Athletic Board Chair or the Athletic Committee Chair, who are presumably involved in this information year-round. I don't know why we wouldn't ask them to participate in this certification letter.
Well, why don't we ask the question, is it the will of the board that we explore having the athletic board be part of both the signatories on the certification letter as well as being part of the annual presentation to the board on matters related to their athletic departments?
Mr. Vasquez.
I get the impression that NCAA, and by the way that it's doing things, is implying that the athletic board or committee be taken very serious, that it's not just for show, it's not just for casual consultation, that it's really playing a very significant and important role. I don't get the impression that they just said, oh, by the way, why don't we just get a few people together to kind of be there in case the chancellor or president or athletic director want to kind of talk it over with somebody else. So I would agree with Jeff that there seems to be some lack of even our own acknowledgement is that really a very important body, or is it really there just simply to be a consultation to the chancellor or the athletic director?
I would ask Regent Milner as to whether that's a good idea or not, since she's served on that board.
Well, there you go. Yeah, feel that one.
Feel that one. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Regent Bartel. I think it's. I've been actively engaged in the committees and actively engaged in the board. They do an excellent job of oversight. Particularly, you have to remember, much of the work is done just as this board. A lot of the work is done at committee level. So the issues of, for example, I jotted down our committees, the Finance Committee, there's a Personnel Committee, Academic Compliance Committee, and something called EDSWA, which is Student Diversity and Education Diversity and Student Welfare. The reports that you talk about generating come before those committees, are actively discussed and acted upon. In some cases, not to the total satisfaction of the athletic department. So I would say that they represent someone that we can rely on as a resource for us with our job of oversight. To that end, it makes perfect sense to me. First of all, I do understand that this comes from the chancellor. This is something that has to come from the chancellor. But I do feel that the recognition of the important work that the athletic board does in that oversight capacity is something that we should appreciate, and we should perhaps show that board we appreciate them doing.
Regent Higgins.
It pains me to admit that I was involved on the athletic board for 4 years in the early 70s, considerably before President Shalala upgraded the quality of professionalism. And I want to point out, in a second, what Regent Milner has said, I really think it is would be a positive step to recognize the committee as an important component of oversight, because committees for athletic boards sometimes get caught up in the excitement of what's happening in athletics and looking to the athletic department and looking less to the chancellor and the governing board as people to whom they're responsible. And so, doing this kind of relatively regular inclusion of them in the oversight process would help emphasize the fact that we've got responsibilities both ways. So I think that would be a good idea.
I would say so far the answer to your question is yes, but go ahead. Regent
Let me be a bit of a dissenting voice, if I might. I mean, I certainly recognizing, acknowledging the important role of the athletic board on campuses, I agree is very important and something that this board could do. However, I also think that you really, once again, come back to clearly focusing on lines of responsibility and accountability. And I think to suggest the involvement of any group on campus specifically and suggest a relationship of that group to this board potentially blurs the ultimate responsibility, which is our direct relationship with the chancellor. And I think the decision of the chancellor to recognize and acknowledge whatever forms of oversight they are doing of their athletic program on their individual campus, and then in turn report to the board potentially as a cleaner, more focused relationship that does not have the risk of blurring some of those lines of reporting and accountability. But that's
Regent Bradley.
I think the certification process is a very sound move, and I think it is very consistent with our relationship that Regent Pruitt just commented on with our chancellors. The Part 2 slide that talked about our, I don't know if the word was review of compensation agreements above a certain level. Those of us who have participated in that know how inadequate you feel or ridiculous you feel when you have this expectation that there's some review. The contract presented to us either has already been signed or it's going to be signed within hours. The employee has an agent. The university has lawyers. This agreement has been wordsmithed to death. And then someone says, well, here's the contract. They hand you a contract. What are you supposed to do? Read it and start thinking about how it might be improved? It's a done deal. So it's quite problematic. It sounds good that this policy board would approve contracts over a certain level. Those are pretty much already done. They're locked in, and we are not in the process. We're not presented with the opportunity to negotiate, to amend, modify those contracts. So it's problematic.
So what is your?
I don't know. I mean, either take that out of there, or we really are the ones who end up approving the contract. But that means before it's signed. That means before the press release has gone out to the public that Coach so-and-so is going to be hired tomorrow.
Okay. Any further action or comment to that? Regent Bartel.
Well, with great respect and admiration for our expert on athletic law, Regent Pruitt,
now you're going to make him a lawyer yet. He really likes that.
I would just suggest that a certification letter does not undercut the chancellor if you get other signatures on it. It simply says there may be some things that other people know that the chancellor doesn't know. And we just want everybody to take responsibility, not just the chancellor, but everybody in who is identified in that certification letter. So I don't think it undercuts the chancellor to put the athletic board more in focus when we review these compliance issues.
Well, as indicated before, we're not going to reach all of the answers today, but Michael, I think two things that to at least think more about in the coming months is on Regent Bradley's point on Part 2 about our role in approving contracts. I think it's something to think about. And on number 3, we can come back to and think some more on the certification letter as to who's going to sign off on that. We've had some good discussion today. We're not going to reach a decision, but I think you've heard the pros and cons.
I think we've gotten real good guidance here.
All right, and then you want to go, which I think is a very... Part 1 here was certainly a departure. The annual presentation was a departure from what we have done in the past. Part 2, if it isn't modified, is going to be similar to what we've done in the past. Part 3, the certification letter, certainly is something different than we've had in the past. And now let's go to Part 4, the protocol requiring violations to be reported to the chancellor.
All right. Part 4 would be to provide some clarity on the handling of known or alleged violations. I believe in practice this has been done in the past, but this will be formalizing a protocol, and it would make sure that the chancellor would be informed, or athletic departments would inform the chancellor of any known or alleged violations or matters that they should be aware of, and that the chancellor would facilitate timely communication to the UW system president, and in turn the UW system president would communicate with the board president. The expectation would continue that the chancellor is responsible to see the matter to resolution, but this would just formalize that reporting structure to make sure that the board was made aware in a timely manner related to matters that they should be.
So, Michael, did you have something else?
Yeah, let me just point out to you a challenge that we have here. This is a protocol. We're calling it a protocol, which means we're going to have to work through some understanding. When we begin our discussions with the campuses about this oversight responsibility, one of the challenges that we identified was in this area. And the question is, what violations should be reported? There are minor violations that occur on our campuses in athletics from time to time, and they occur all too frequently. The NCAA is a very exacting group, and there are a lot of minor violations. What we're trying to do is to establish a definition that will have a bright line, right, so that the respective campuses will know what kinds of violations we're talking about, or whether or not there is a continuing course of a certain kind of violation that we would want to know. So we're in the process of trying to get clarity on what alleged violations are we referring to here. Major violations, or every violation that may have been cited by the NCAA, some of which are very, very minor, many of which are reported by the campuses themselves to the NCAA when they find that they may have inadvertently violated rules. So I offer that.
Okay. Are there some examples of what other protocols that other camp or university systems have? Or?
Well, we're out of the blocks, a little bit before almost everybody else, as we found in our research on this issue. We'll continue to see if we can find an already existing example that may give us some guidance on this issue. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to wrestle with this one a little bit, get up on the steer and ride it a little bit and see if we can, come up with something that, works real well in terms of the definition.
So this is something that would be communicated to the chancellor, to the UW system president, and to the board president.
Yes. What we're trying to do is establish a clear, as I indicated earlier, clear and unambiguous communication channel, and it will go, from the athletic department to the chancellor up to the president, who would then bring it to the board.
Regent Millman.
My concern is that the word violation is in a way a term of art. It can mean compliance. It can mean an NCAA compliance violation. I don't think we're simply talking about compliance violations, because there you have a hierarchy. You've got the minor violations, you've got the major. We're also talking about things that we should not revisit Penn State. But the issues at Penn State were not compliance violations necessarily. They were criminal violations. So I'm wondering if we can broaden the term violation so it doesn't simply sound like a term of art.
Yeah, well, we'll do that. But as you are aware, after the Penn State matter, we tried to get at this question of communications through a different channel around issues involving children on our campuses. Liz and our group did some real good work in auditing our campuses and trying to understand, how we, in the first instance, prevent that kind of behavior, but also ensure that it's reported appropriately up the chain of, command. So this was, this could fall, this process could capture some of those kinds of violations, but we already have, I think, a pretty good process of trying to do that now.
But, for example, it could be embezzlement. It could be, there are a scope of activities, of activities that would constitute a violation without it being a compliance violation. So, and it's not simply, I don't want to just revisit Penn State. I want to take a look at what might happen in the future.
We'll offer clarity on that also.
Thank you.
How would you characterize what we currently have as a protocol? We don't have a protocol in the sense of a written protocol, but how give us an idea as to how it happens today.
Well, we have a practice, right, that's in place, that's developed, where because of the relationship the president has with our chancellors, a very good relationship with the chancellors, they communicate to him on a regular basis on a variety of issues, including challenges that they may have on their campuses. But we don't have a protocol. We don't have a clear pathway for them to, know these are the kinds of things. If we see certain kinds of violations, this is how we're going to communicate it. And what at the end of the day, I think what we're doing is we're taking a informal process, and this protocol will formalize it, right? We have a good practice already. What I think we want to do is ensure that when this president and this group of chancellors that we have go on to their next adventure, that we'll have a rule in place or a protocol in place that will help the successor chancellors and presidents to communicate on issues that are important in this area.
John.
Michael, you had talked a little bit about minor violations. Just for purposes of background as we talk about this, could you give us an example of what minor violations are? And maybe here's kind of the context of what I'm getting at. Do I think it makes sense to bog down, President Smith's desk with, if drinking alcohol as a student is one of the violations that needs to be reported, I don't know that we need to bog down the president's desk with those type of violations. On the other hand, certainly if it's something that's going to get in the newspaper, then the board president needs to know. So in terms of making sure we're not creating something overly complicated, can you kind of give just a couple sentences to what is a minor violation?
I'm sure, Coach Alvarez and others could give better examples, but I'll give you one that I read about in the paper. Russell Wilson was being recruited a year ago, or a little over a year ago, to come here and play football at the University of Wisconsin. He did come here, and he had a great career, and he's done some great things in the pros. At any rate, after his initial visit to campus, Nick Toon, member of the team, texted, I think, saying, "Russell, you seem like a great guy. We'd love to have you part of this team." That was an NCAA violation. And it was self-reported, right? Before the NCAA said anything or did anything, the university athletic department called them up and said, just want to let you know that we violated their rules. Those are the kind of minor things that may go on from time to time, right? I'm sure we don't want to clog up the communication channels with those kinds of things. On the other hand, we know we want to hear about those things that may find their way into the paper, right? It's the in-between, the gray, where you, as a distinguished lawyer, know where to live, right? You all make a great living in the gray, trying to sort things out. So what we're trying to do is to sort things out to have clear demarcations so that, we stay out of the gray and we have, really a well-defined process that everybody can follow. And still we're going to be, find ourselves in, murky waters from time to time.
Lesson of that is gray is not always bad, but anyway.
Gray is good.
No, it is.
For some.
For some, right. Anything else on that? I know we have some guests.
I want to invite Coach Alvarez to, if he'd like, and first, Vice Chancellor Darrell Brazell. And I think also, I'm not sure if he'd like to come up also, but I'd like to invite up Deputy Athletic Director Sean Frazier.
Sure.
All folks who know a lot more about NCAA than I do.
Well, we welcome all three of you in any order that you want to present is fine with us. Welcome.
Vice Chancellor.
Great. Thank you, Regent President. Interim Chancellor David Wood is not here today. I think we know the reason why. He's back home waiting to greet the President today, so he asked me to appear on his behalf. One of the reasons he asked me to appear on his behalf on this particular matter is, as part of our reporting protocol and oversight over the department, while the athletic director and the department formally reports to the chancellor, I have the day-to-day responsibility of providing oversight to assist the chancellor in that important responsibility. I'll be brief again in my thoughts here. I think the protocol that's been outlined here, I think, is fair and appropriate. Giving the board an opportunity to learn, at least on an annual basis, where we stand in terms of our financial well-being, student-athlete well-being, academic success, along with compliance, I think are appropriate categories. And I think the content suggested here seems to be about right. And so we're certainly comfortable with what's being suggested here today. Let me just offer just real quickly a couple of quick comments regarding some of the feedback from board members. And I'll certainly first take notice. This is a tough area. You have to really figure out where that sweet spot is in terms of allowing the chancellor to carry out his or her appropriate institutional control responsibilities, but also the need to make sure the board is appropriately engaged and involved and able to execute their responsibilities as well. I think the notion of a compliance letter, I think is fine, or certification letter, I think is the terminology used here. I think the components are okay as well. But I do want to make sure, again, at the end of the day, that we're also being fair in terms of two things. On questions around, criminal behavior or things you might read in the paper, certainly everyone wants to know about those things and not be caught off guard. But I wonder whether or not those kinds of concerns are unique to athletics. In other words, to what extent and in what areas might we ask athletics to go above and beyond what we might ask of an academic unit or other parts of campus that might find themselves in a similar situation relative to embezzlement or other types of criminal activity. We certainly have policies and procedures in place across the breadth of the campus to address those matters and to make sure they're addressed, again, and handled in an appropriate way, and the chancellor certainly exercises what I would hope would be appropriate discretion in properly informing the assistant president and the board around those matters. And again, that's not unique to intercollegiate athletics. A lot of discussion around the role of our local athletic board, and I think it's a good discussion. We spent a lot of time thinking about that, not just in recent weeks and months as this proposal has moved forward, but certainly over the years we've wrestled with that issue internally. I think Regent Milner has expressed the role of the board, athletic board, incredibly well. It's an important board that they get paid lots of money to do this really important work, but it really is helpful, and we need that somewhat independent eyes and ears on what's going on in terms of providing advice and consultation back. But I'll also remind this board that the athletic board is a governance committee. That board does not have a formal line responsibility with respect to athletics. That line, again, as I mentioned, is very clear. It's from the athletic director to the chancellor. Again, the athletic board plays an important role, but I think giving them a more formal role in signing off on certifications and compliance and like extends an authority to that board that presently doesn't exist, and not just an authority, but a level of accountability that wasn't contemplated, perhaps, as that governance committee, in fact, was put together. I know Interim Chancellor Ward, when he moves forward to actually execute this plan, once it is in fact approved by this board, intends to bring the athletic board chair to be a part of that presentation. But I would agree with some of the commentary from some board members here that ought to be at the discretion of the chancellor in terms of how he utilizes not just the athletic board but other members of the campus community in presenting what's happening with the athletic department each year. So just a couple of thoughts around some of your discussion here today, and I'm certainly happy to talk about those matters further, but I'd like to give the athletic director an opportunity to respond to what's been presented here this morning.
Thank you. That'd be great. Coach?
Thank you, Darrell. With three of our most visible schools in our conference going on probation in the last several years, I certainly can understand why this board would want a report. And I think it is prudent, and we certainly agree with it. We've tried to be very transparent in everything that we do. Each of these reports that would be asked of us, we do already. We do them for our athletic board. We do them for the NC2A in some cases. In some cases, we do them for the Big Ten. So these are things that we currently do. Certainly would be glad to come here and make a presentation to you and be open to any questions. But I just think it is prudent that, particularly what has happened in the past few years, that you ask for us to be before you and present these things. So, and I know there were a couple of questions. Mike doesn't work with it on a day-to-day basis with minor infractions and that type of thing, but I'd be glad to answer any of those questions for you.
Well, Coach, you mentioned the Big Ten, and obviously we've had some high-profile instances. Are other Big Ten schools looking at some of the things we're trying to do here? Is the reporting requirements? You go to the meetings, maybe some of the other. Is this?
I think everyone is very sensitive around the country, particularly after the Penn State situation. And I think prior to that happening, I think all of us looked at Penn State as a model that you wanted to be like. I remember when I took the job as athletic director, my wife said, I want you to be an athletic director like Tim Curley. But they had never been on probation. They had never had a serious violation. And we all thought they ran a model program. So I think everyone's taking a step back and looking what they do. Now, we are one of I don't know another university that has an athletic board that they have to answer to or have oversight over the athletic program as we do. So we've been protected for the most part, unlike most of the other schools.
Let me ask you about this part 4, this protocol, what your reaction to that is. And we started this discussion about minor infractions versus, give me some of your thoughts on that.
Well, a minor infraction is a minor infraction.
Okay. Is a minor infraction.
Nick answered a question by a sports writer in passing, but it hit the paper, that's a minor violation. We have to report it to the Big Ten. There are cases where you can feed your athlete as they leave, but you can't give them peanut butter. You can give them a bagel, but you can't give them peanut butter to put on the bagel. It gets down to that type of thing. A coach inadvertently texts a recruit a day after there's a limit when you could do it. The rule book is so thick, and that's one of the issues President Emmert in the NC2A is addressing now. It's impossible not to have inadvertent violations. So to clean it up, eliminate things that don't matter. That's one of the charges of our new NC2A president. We don't go to our chancellor or to Darrell's our direct report on every secondary violation, although we do give all of our secondary violations to our athletic board. They see all the secondary violations. Anytime that we would have something that we would deem a potential infraction, serious infraction, we contact campus immediately. Then our people will then proceed. We will investigate. We will report it to the Big Ten when we feel that it's the appropriate time. But you do not want to go through all the secondary violations. We would report. We have that protocol, but the only thing we would report to here would be any potential serious violations.
And that's where what you would now talk to either Darrell or to the chancellor would be when. Where do you draw the line now? Where do you kind of?
Any time that we feel as though there's some issue that they have to know about, and I'm not talking about the trivial things, the secondary violations don't matter, but we try to be very transparent with them with any ongoings that we feel are important for them to know.
We can put.
Could you just share, and Darrell as well, sort of the current sort of way you deal with what I would call major policy issues coming before the athletic governing, the athletic conference sort of operation? I mean, as obviously conference membership, which is not a major issue.
As far as potential,
and just how you currently within the structure, how you sort of deal with that, and whether or not you see or how you see this board interacting, if at all, with those kinds of those kinds of decisions and conversations that happen.
I'm not sure exactly what decisions. I mean, are you talking about expansion in the Big Ten?
I'm talking about the sort of the what I would consider to be the Big Ten conference sort of meetings, sort of review of major decisions, whether it's broadcast right decisions, whether it's conference membership, all those kinds of things.
That goes through the directors. We can always vote on it, but the final stamp comes through the presidents. The presidents end up making the vote and making the decisions on TV revenue, TV contracts, expansions, anything of that nature is voted on by the presidents. As directors, we may vote on, I just came from a meeting the other day, we may vote on looking at expansion. We may vote on travel party, how many you could take to a football game, who's going to go to what bowl games we're going to go to. We would vote on those. Who you're going to sign the contracts with, how we're going to change our scheduling procedure in football. How many class days, or when would you allow a team to travel? How many total class days over a semester can they miss? Those are things that, examples of things that we would vote on and move forward.
Thank you. Regent.
Morning.
Morning.
I have a question. Agent Bradley talked about an issue that has come up occasionally when there is a contract entered into between you and a coach or somebody, and it's announced, and then we have to approve it. Do you have any suggestions for us or comments you'd like to make to us about that process and how we can make it better for us?
That's very sensitive for me in hiring a coach, because there's a sense of urgency. There has to be some confidentiality as you contact coaches. To get some movement in hiring someone, you don't want it out in the paper, yet you have to come to some type of a number. I know when I have to come here to get approval first. I'm very sensitive to that because we have assistant coaches that are approaching that number now. I try to stay below that number because I don't want it out. I don't want you to have to approve it for a number of reasons.
We appreciate that. Yeah.
But when you're dealing with head football coaches, head basketball coaches, there's a market out there. At times we haven't had to do that recently, but in renegotiating and on one of Brett's cases. You try to do what's right. He's got an agent. There's sometimes another school or someone else is trying to get involved in hiring. So I'm sensitive to it. I don't like to put it in front of you where it's been agreed to already. I try to get some feel for where I should go with it before it comes to you.
Would it be better if we didn't have to approve those things?
Yes. The answer is yes.
That was a good. Somebody would have to change some policy or regulation, I think, for that to happen. Well, any other questions now or comments to Coach Alvarez? Deshaun, Sean? I'm sorry. Regent Whitburn, did you have something? Sorry.
Oh, Coach.
On this contract issue, we don't currently make it the work of one of our committees.
Correct.
Which we could, which may make it a little bit more practical to deal with.
Okay. I was just saying maybe we should go through a committee structure or a process as opposed to having the whole board review it. So.
Well, I think as you take a look at it now, take a look at the big picture of Division I basketball, or top 20 football coaches, top 20 basketball coaches, and the numbers that are out there. I think we have outstanding coaches. We're going to have to be careful. The market is going to drive us, whether we all agree with it or not. It's a fact of life. So I think I don't know when these numbers were put together, but I think we have to be sensitive to where we have to go if we want to stay competitive. And I think my constituents tell me they want to be competitive.
Well, we got through this without asking you about 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 in Nebraska, so that was
I've got the same questions. I've asked those questions. I do have answers, but I don't want to say them publicly.
All right. We'll agree on that. Thank you very much for coming. And Michael, do our chancellors, we have obviously representatives of UW Green Bay, UW-Milwaukee here.
Yeah, Chancellor Hayden is here, and Chancellor Lovell. We certainly want to give them an opportunity to be heard also on these, on what we've outlined.
That's what I thought.
So here, if there are comments, I see Chancellor Hayden stood.
Thank you. Tom Harden.
I'm sorry.
You're in.
He knows who I am, actually. He's got a lot on his mind.
I have a problem with
That's okay.
Chancellor's name, so.
I do too. Well, I have just the observation that's been shared by others, and that is I think it's appropriate for you to look at these things. I think Darrell Bozell made a really good point when he indicated that our committee and his council for athletics really is a governance group, and it really is advisory. It's not really a line type of decision-making organization. So whether they sign off on the letter, it really doesn't make a lot of difference to me, but I don't personally think that that's necessary or makes, that I see a real need for that, or that it would be a great benefit. But anyway, I think you should look at these things. I think that you should have a great interest in athletics, but it's certainly not the only thing we do, and it's certainly not the primary thing that we do, but it is important.
Thank you, UW Green Bay Chancellor Tom Hayden.
Mike?
I just want to make a brief comment that I think the thing we have to be worried about, that we're all going to be cognizant of, is that trouble happens when communication breaks down. So as long as the athletic director is providing the chancellor's information, the chancellor providing system president information, and he's providing the regents the information, we'll be fine. And I think what problems we looked over the last year, it's when the communication did not happen and people did not get the information they needed. And sometimes it's poor judgment, sometimes it's people hiding things, but either way, as long as we have those communication streams, and I can think of something that happened last spring in my campus. The only time that we've had a news story that was on the lead story of all 4 news networks was the athletic department, and I made sure I let Kevin know well before that happened, so we could advise some folks on the board. So I think it's just all our responsibility.
Thank you, Chancellor Lovell.
Thank you.
A few things on follow-up, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
We will, reflect on the comments that have been made here today and offered by the Board of Regents, and get back to you with some revisions in the framework that we've discussed today. And we want to do that fairly quickly. Our hopes have been, as a follow-up to this meeting, is to make whatever revisions that need to be done in time for us to have UW-Madison actually appear before the board to make their first annual report in December, when we hold when the Board of Regents meeting is on the UW-Madison campus. That's when they officially host the meeting. We may not be able to get it done by then, so we may have to move it back to February, but that was our objective. So we'll continue to work on this and report back to the board. You should have something in November, although it's a one-day meeting. We'll have some information for you. As I indicated before, we had anticipated that we would have the chancellor and athletic director from our D1 institutions appear in this order. Madison would be in December when they host the Board of Regents. UW-Milwaukee would be in June when they host the Board of Regents. And I'll have to sit down and have a discussion with UW Green Bay Chancellor Tom Harden about a good time to have his presentation to the Board of Regents. So we haven't quite worked that out yet. But it sounds to me like the board does want to move forward with this review. The question is, what should that review look like?
Well, and that's my question, I guess, and Kevin, I'm addressing it to both of you. You have a suggested methodology you put forth today. You now have some comments from us. Are you envisioning this would come back to us for
I think
approval?
You have to approve it.
That would be good.
Yes.
I'm just trying to. Then you think that could happen as early as November or December?
I think so. Yes. The questions that arose here today. In fact, we tried to design the information that we provided for you in a way that would sort of tease up the kind of comments and questions that we got. They were a little bit anticipated. So we have some thoughts on how we might address some of the issues and questions that came up here today. And I think we can be ready for the next iteration of this process by our next meeting.
Regent Higgins. Yeah, we surely have more discussion. We've got time for some more discussion. Council, go ahead.
I didn't realize we were being so quickly. I just want to throw out that I noticed in the materials, it refers to the Board of Regents or designated committee. My point of view, this really should take place before the Education Committee. Our athletics is a program for education for the student athletes. I don't know that we have to be on the full board for this education.
Thoughts or comments on that? Regent Bartel.
I agree, but there are also there are major financial issues involving the athletic department. So there's another committee that might also be involved.
That would be my initial reaction, that there might be, So then we get to the whole board between those two committees, as we know almost. But
I was going to suggest the economic development implications might suggest that the READY committee also. They heard in Mark's absence. I wanted to.
So that's 3 or 4. Jeff, do you have anything to say to the Capitol?
And there are a lot of buildings.
There's scoreboards and things like that.
Thank you for bringing that up, Richard Higgins.
Great.
Other questions? We can ask us if you're. Michael, I'm still trying to let me just go back because we have some time here for further questions and comments. Our current procedure as to how we do this, what type of information we get, where we get it from, and who reviews it in our system. I realize what you're suggesting, but I'm still a little confused on what we have currently.
Let me be clear. I don't think we have a current procedure on how we do what we're talking about here today. And I think that's one of the reasons why, over a year ago, members of the Board of Regents began to ask, so how do we discharge our responsibility, right, fiduciary, in the area of D1 athletics? We talked about at the Business Finance and Audit Committee about the fact that we do audits of our D3s. We have a regular audit schedule in our D2. But amazingly, we hadn't done a whole lot of work in the D1 space, except for, we look at data and information that Madison and Milwaukee and Green Bay report to the NCAA and to their respective committees. But there was no formal relationship. That's what we're trying to establish here today.
President Riley has a comment.
Yes, that's right. And I guess what I'd say is in the past, my office, the board, has delegated the oversight for athletics entirely really to the chancellors. And when I talk with them, there's a problem, they call me. When I do the evaluation, we sometimes will talk about that responsibility among many others. I want to compliment Michael, I want to compliment Liz, I want to compliment Interim Chancellor Ward, Vice Chancellor Brazell, Director of Athletics Barry Alvarez, and Sean Frazier, the Deputy, because we have been having these conversations over, Michael, more than 6 months now together, and Chancellor Ward's played a vital role in this. I think I can speak for him, Darrell, in saying that he feels that the Chancellor, in exercising that responsibility, needs to have more of this kind of dialogue with the governing board, and with my office. I know that Barry, when I met with him and we talked about this, feels the same way. So I think we are stepping into a new relationship. The authority, the lines of authority have always been there, but we really haven't worked with the chancellor as a board. You haven't to say, okay, how are those being exercised? How do you feel about it? Are you comfortable? Are we comfortable? Is the athletic director comfortable? Those are the kinds of conversations, I think, in an open and transparent way we will now be able to enter into because of the good work the people I just mentioned have done, and the preliminary conversations with Chancellor Lovell and his new athletic director, Chancellor Harden and his athletic folks too. So,
Michael, anything else from?
I think Chancellor Gao wants to weigh in.
Chancellor Gao.
Yes, I don't think that what will change at all will be that it's still the Chancellor's responsibility to take responsibility. And I think Regent Bradley was saying you run the campus, and I don't know whether it always feels like we run the campus, but certainly we have responsibility for it. And I'm a Penn State alum twice, and so it was really powerful to hear somebody as prominent as Barry Alvarez say that was the model. And that's really the way it was. And I have another degree from the University of Alabama, and they've got a great program, but they were never known for the integrity that Penn State has. And I can tell you as an alum, and I get introduced a lot, and they'll say he has degrees from... It's very uncomfortable to have people look at you funny when they hear you went to Penn State. That's a terrible feeling. And I see President Graham Spanier let us all down by not taking responsibility for that situation. It was, complex, but nonetheless, the buck stops there. And I think we all know that. And we have a great relationship with Kevin. And, coincidentally, as many of you know, we had some issues at lacrosse, and I knew you'd want to know about those, and Tom Stafford. And then you said, we should get together with the board and let them know. And fortunately, they weren't anything that were terribly scandalous. But I think at present, we do have pretty good relationships and practices. I think maybe what your fine work will do is just remind us all of how important this is, and that's very valuable. So,
okay. Further questions, comments? Michael, anything else that you have?
No, I thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for your excellent work.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing from you in November or December. We're a little early, that's fine. Nobody will object. The lunch at noon will be in the Crystal Ballroom. Not sure where that is. Right across the hall? Oh, good. Well, that's... And then 1 o'clock, the committee meetings. Okay. So anyway, and then 2:30, and then, of course, our reception starting tonight at 6. So 12 o'clock across the hall.